Are you ready to take a divergent path? Does your mind long to escape the chains of the algorithm?
From deep within us all, both our instinct and intuition tells us there's more to every story, and truths are burning to be set free.
Join us as we demolish groupthink and encourage you to venture further into the what-ifs.
In a world where closed-mindedness and subjective thinking hijacks our reality, where any deviation is discouraged, time is running out.
We are about to venture beyond the narrative. Welcome to the Thought Rebellion.
The dead internet theory posits, as the name would suggest, a dead internet, by which it means the internet has been nearly entirely taken over by artificial intelligence. The so-called theory got a lot of traction after a post appeared on Agora Road's Macintosh cafe by one IlluminatiPirate for it was cool, in which he outlines at great length the idea that the internet is basically devoid of humanity compared to the internet of, say, 2007. He gave a Too Long Didn't Read, in which he states large proportions of the supposedly human-produced content on the internet are actually generated by artificial intelligence networks in conjunction with paid secret media influencers in order to manufacture consumers for an increasing range of newly normalized cultural products. Is this just glorified solipsism, or is there something more going on? The theory is so obscure that there isn't even a Wikipedia page for him, but we're going to explore it today, and I'm here with Cece.
Hello.
And Discordian.
Hello. Greetings, Monier.
So what are you guys' first inklings?
Oh, I was just going to say, speaking of Wikipedia, which in all honesty in itself is a rabbit hole and is also such a mess. Anytime that I hear someone say that they've been doing research, I always wonder if Wikipedia is their reference point. As many already know, Wikipedia is a website that has evolved over time into a large online encyclopedia of sorts. The origins of Wikipedia come from the creator named Ward Cunningham, a computer programmer, of course, whom supposedly came up with the name from taking the Wiki bus in Hawaii, which meant quit. In actuality, its former iteration was Newpedia, a porn site called Bulmus, whose attempt at making an online encyclopedia was then taken by Cunningham. As it evolved over time, there's now 5 million English-based articles on Wikipedia. There's a lot of issues that have arisen with the evolution of the site. And I think we all know that anybody can hop on there and edit articles. There's lots of fake news published and also lots of people just trolling. That's my first thoughts.
You can edit articles as long as it's not the meaning of a recession.
Yeah.
My first thoughts are, well, when I seen we were going to talk about dead internet, I thought I had an idea, look into it, and then I realized how important a topic it is, like how much ramifications, if any of it is true, have on the technological aspects of our lives and society. And one person I read say it very well, and it was, if you want to describe the dead internet theory, just think of it like a bunch of AI-driven bots that are just gaslighting all the users, and it's this whole circus going on. I mean, you're going to get into specifics of it, and I don't want to touch any straight off the bat. But the idea that it's fake and that it's not what it originally was is very, very real to me. I've experienced it going through the motions, and in doing some of this research, it confirmed a lot of things for me. I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense that would be the reason why the feed on my news feed is the way it is, or my friend's feed changed 17 times in 4 years, the way it was being shown to me, and the orientation of the screen changed. And it's just like, it did start as something and become something else, and that could be another just to the entire internet. That's my first thoughts.
Just some spiel I want to give, and there's literature to back up the idea that all of this is legit. So the guy that originally posted this theory believes that the US government is engaging in an artificial intelligence-powered gaslighting of the entire world population, and the takeover of the World Wide Web by AI or bots is evident in the literature. We can look at bot traffic on the internet, and the numbers are pretty insane. Back in 2013, a report found that half of all YouTube traffic was bots. The report stated, quote, "A full half of YouTube traffic was bots masquerading as people. a portion so high that employees feared an inflection point after which YouTube's system for detecting fraudulent traffic would begin to regard bot traffic as real and human traffic as fake, and they call this hypothetical event the inversion. That's just on YouTube, but in the present day, according to a Barracuda report based on January to June 2021, done on all internet activity, found that bot activity accounted for an estimated 64% of all internet traffic, split between 39% bad bots and 25% good bots, which is a stark contrast to human activity coming in at a meager 36% in comparison.
No, 35% of the 36 being negative and 1% being positive in the other. That's what I'm saying.
However, one must wonder how accurate a study of this sort can be, considering bots can be so advanced to a point where they truly act like humans. As such, spoofing the human metric. They carry out automated tasks, sure, but they also follow a regular workday flow according to the same report. So the bots become active essentially on a 9 to 5 schedule.
In the various time zones, I'm guessing, in the various countries and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever relevant time zone, yeah.
Because the internet's perpetual, someone's always awake on the internet. Yeah.
Something that I do want to say before we get really into it is that just over my lifetime of using the internet, computers were kind of a new technology whenever I was younger. And we got a computer pretty early on in the initial phases of home computers being a thing. And the old internet, it's evolved. Obviously, it's evolved since the first iteration of it, but I kind of do miss even the earlier evolution of it whenever you could just get on and it was just people communicating with each other. You can tell that it's changed and you can tell that it's very inauthentic now. And I don't think it's moving in a positive direction.
Yes. The idea is that there's now in the dead internet less actual people interacting. Not that they're not using it, but that they're not connected in the same way. Will we say that, Molyneux? Because we know that however big the population is of the world and however amount are of the age and capable, have access to internet, are on there interacting. But the idea of the dead internet is that they're not actually interacting with each other as much as they were originally, that they're all sort of in rooms, that bots and AI are catering to their experience. Am I saying this
Yes.
correctly? Yeah, and individually. And then CC's reminiscing was that when there was no bots and no real AI, it was just the way that every bulletin board or room was set up with its whatever parameters, whatever it was set up, and people had all their crazy names on there, and you were just constantly talking to people without that intervention. There was no search engine or anything like that to direct you, whatever. So it was really, you just had to know where you wanted to go and type it in and you would get there, and nothing would change that. And I feel like as it's changed, Google's got the reins and all the different social media platforms have their own sort of, I guess, way that they deal with this. And yeah, it's like a deep fake internet, like, and getting your head around that is a little bit hard. I mean, I wonder if anyone listening is like, no, that's ridiculous. You know, everything's on there real. But the idea with this is that if you're being catered to by the AI bot, the algorithm idea, yes, we know that they're giving us, tailored news and whatnot. So that's already evident. But that they might even be running fake user profiles that are deliberately trying to corral some sort of idea, like to change an argument, take it in a different direction, or say something's bad or something's good, and show as if that there's like this large amount of support for it, when that it's actually not true. That to me might be unbelievable to some people, but to me it's like, I feel like it's almost got to be happening, and it explains a lot of stuff.
I mean, if you really look at it, it could trigger a pure black swan event wherein your entire worldview just switches. Something comes along and entirely switches your worldview. And I think that the dead internet theory, if people are to really truly believe it, could really pivot your understanding of what the internet is and really your place in it.
Well said.
So this is just what I wanted to start yelling at the mic. You can buy the use of these bots online. So you can go online and search, for example, buy YouTube views, pay for that, and more than likely the person on the other side is running a significant botnet that'll work to watch your video X amount of times and was that you got your job done. Or you can hire someone in China, in a Chinese click farm that has a botnet of phones that can auto click whatever you command the bot to. So Instagram likes, command your botnet to like an Instagram post or whatnot. Piece of evidence that is being used for this theory, something else that has occurred throughout 2019, 2020, and also 2021, is the appearance of tweets saying, I hate texting, followed by something extremely cheesy. For example, I hate texting, I just want to hold your hand. Or I hate texting, just come live with me. Or I hate texting, I just want to kiss you. Which is strange speech patterns by accounts that look slightly off. If you go and just search Google for I hate texting and look at the tweets and the accounts, they're just strange.
Yeah. Well, so you're saying they're not human? Is that what you?
I don't believe so. So are these bots trying to just understand humans in this weird way? There has been people that spoke of that idea, namely the original poster stating, quote, roughly in 2016 or early 2017, 4chan was filled with posts by someone or something. It wasn't spam. The conversations with it were in real time across multiple boards and multiple threads simultaneously. Its English was grammatically correct, but odd. And he claims, I am not a native English speaker and thus I'm sensitive to its misuse. And he says, similar to how a Japanese person may use it, a sense of childlike curiosity and childlike intellect emanated from these posts. It posed a lot of questions, usually as if trying to understand the emotions of posters it was talking to, as if unfamiliar with human emotions. Communicating with this poster was an odd experience. I could sense something was off, but not malicious. I'm absolutely certain this was an AI of some sort. This poster was active only for about a week, and as far as I know, nobody has ever mentioned or noticed this anon. Its replies were always on topic, but the above-mentioned childishness clashed with the apparent knowledge it possessed. It was the knowledge of an adult person, so it wasn't a kid or something of the sort.
That was just a socially awkward grown-up male living in his parents' basement on the internet.
But yeah, the fact that AI is in there and it's learning and it's in a feedback loop, so it's getting information. It's probably taking that back to its programming, whatever. That maybe it can alter its code then, so it is sort of learning, and that's like a little bit scary. That the idea that if they're doing that all over the internet, that the internet is growing into some sort of brain. First, it was the brain of all the people, and all the people's voices were like their synapses, and now it's being reproduced artificially. And they're trying to grow this massive mega AI brain for sure.
Well, I will say that just being on Instagram and looking in the comments, the bots on there aren't learning very quickly because they're all like, hey, I'm lonely. Want to come back to my place? But they've obviously tapped into, I think that there's a huge population of people on the internet that are obviously very lonely and looking up certain things. And I think that the bots have obviously grabbed a hold of that. And that's a way for them to get hits on whatever they're posting. So if the internet's learning and the bots are learning based on what
I
people are
wouldn't be
posting and
surprised if
searching,
that's
then
actually
it's
where
going
it
to be a
started, where the
terrifying
bots
thing.
were first implemented in those type of situations where they're on the take to vulnerable people. And, if it seems to be that, say it's females that are trying to net guys, female looking bots, whatever, that they can be from overseas, so they can be not that well spoken in English, so that would mask the fact that they're using it in the way they are, but it's a bot. And just to get people thinking that, well, what would that work by? I think getting to people think that, say, for instance, it's Match Date or whatever it's called is like a good site because there's so many people on there, right? So you'll definitely be able to find somebody that matches you, but really on there, maybe it's 5% are real people and 95% are just there, like the Potemkin village, which we might talk about later.
Yes. So what I was going to say. So if we can accept a suggestion that that was a bot trying to learn human emotions, then you can look at other things. So one of the things I remember from when I was a child was a thing called SimSimi, which was a AI that you could speak to. It was very primitive. It didn't always answer your questions correctly. It sometimes went extremely off topic and was pretty just bad all around. So in today's age, I decided to download an app. I just searched it randomly on my phone and I tried to have a conversation with it. The difference is beyond unreal. I started having a conversation about political philosophy, nihilism. I started having all these conversations, and all the responses were very coherent and very, very human-like. They would posit these different ideas and give you genuine, accurate information and all this. So that was a very strange experiment I just ran there earlier on.
There's also the bots. The only time I've ever interacted knowingly with a bot is on Discord, and they had the bots that you could actually add to different servers, and I was a part of a server that they had. I can't remember the name of the bot, but it was similar to that, where you could just have a conversation with it, and it did respond pretty accurately. But I think that if you're really paying attention, there's always some sort of underlying tell that it's not a real person that you're interacting with, or it's just a socially awkward person.
When you talk to this, it's very hyper intelligent almost, and it's grammatically always on point.
Is that the most current one, would you say? Like, is it the 2022 version of what's going on now, or has it been around for a while?
You want about the app that I was talking about?
Yeah. Like if you wanted to check it out, like, because I know just from an internet browser, you can talk to Cleverbot, and not so clever. It's not too bad in small talk in the beginning, but as soon as you start, pulling out something, I like to patronize them a little bit and see how they take it. Like, do you have eyes? Things like that. Are you inside a server right now, or are you real? Like, just saying things and see how they deal with it. But that's not as good as what you're talking about. Maybe think about when you was talking about, how call centers now want to offer you text chats, like to get your things done that you want to know, instead of taking up time on the phone with a human or whatnot. And it seems to me that that's not a person on the other side that's sitting in front of a computer managing 5 text chats bots or text chat boxes at once, multitasking. It's more likely that it's a bot that's just programmed to, because you can only get so far with them, and then after that, you're like, this is not working. I'm going to have to ring up anyway.
I had that experience yesterday. I reordered a coffee machine and a part of it came broken. And so I logged on to Amazon and I was entering it, like gives you options where you can just click to say what's wrong with it or whatever. And so I was clicking through, and then it actually brings up responses. So like you can click, I received my item, and then it will say, give you a couple of options, and you can click on that. And then as you respond to it, it responds to what you're saying, and it gives you different options for, like, then you speak to someone. But then I was like, this doesn't seem like I'm speaking to someone, because it was giving similar options as the pre-written responses. And so then, like, as I was going through that, it was a bot. And then you just have to say, like, speak to a representative or speak to a person. But it's scary, because I think that that's going to be the future of customer service, is going to be going through speaking with a machine so that they don't have to employ as many people.
Yeah, I had that exact same experience, where I got a phone call and it sounded straight away like it wasn't live, like it sounded like a recording, but it was close to real. And it happened twice. First it was a guy, then it was a girl. Can't even remember where they said they were from, but it's like, hey, it's so-and-so from blah, 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 and la-di-da-di, whatever. And then my response was, you sound like a robot, dude, like this, what is this, And then the response that came back was, oh, ha, 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 do you think I sound weird? Like, so they had that prepared as a response, and it was trying to convince me that I was wrong. I was like, all right then. And I said something like, tell me what's the meaning of life. And then it said something randomly unrelated. And I was like, well, no, you're not real. And then the reaction was wrong. So, but yeah, exactly that the customer service idea and everything, it's like pretty much AIs will be running that. And if they're running all of that human interaction and they're running all the automated services, we start getting to technocracy idea here,
Yeah.
I just asked this bot, what is your political ideology? And it responded to me, I support the Democratic Party.
Oh, of course.
Mjolnir's head exploded.
Long live Biden.
Give me something to ask this bot, live on the air.
Ask the bot, what do you know about lifelog.org?
I know that it helps people, and it was created by a bunch of programmers.
Is that what it said?
That's right.
Wow. Okay. I just noted that when lifelog ended, something else started. And it's like,
Facebook.
that to me was, yeah, that's it. That was me. To me, that was a significant thing because I've always had the idea that Facebook was a psyop from the start.
I don't know if you guys have seen this. I don't know what you're referring to that Mjolnir posted, but I have a really good article from Nexus magazine, and they have a 2-part series on, they called it How the West Was Won, Counterinsurgency, Psychops, and the Internet. And they delve into the whole CIA being involved with what they call initiatives of mass digital data systems, and how LifeLog, and they were making those same ties that LifeLog was closed in February of 2004 at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and that Facebook was founded February of 2004.
Okay, so I'm just going to give a timeline based on years. So 2004, as previously mentioned, DARPA's LifeLock project was cancelled. Facebook came into being soon after. 2004 to 2012, NSA, which some call No Such Agency, funny, picked up DARPA's project under the Total Information Awareness Project. 2012, Smith Month Modernization Act gives the US government full legal authority to use propaganda against its own populace, undoing rules put in place after Operation Mockingbird's discovery, and the Church Committee. 2012 to 2016, shittins of DARPA/NSA contracts were given to Google, Facebook, Amazon, and all of them. 2016, leaked memos dating back to 2016 found in 2018 of Google's Selfish Ledger program or project. Also 2016, Google released a bunch of neuro-linguistic machine learning programs in 2016. 2017, deepfake leaks start to become released. And 2018, confirmed that for decades now, Reddit, YouTube, and all of them, vote and view counts are fake and completely manipulated. So it just gives a timeline.
And DARPA, for anyone that doesn't know, is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And anything, that's on the face of it, that's like a legitimate area of the government that gets funding. And they're interested in all these things, like William just stated then.
So anyways, these 2 articles that I'm going to post, they go into how the internet is being used significantly by the government, and that essentially how I like to think of it is that it's a social experiment as well. And that whenever I was looking into this, I was thinking, could it be social engineering? Because social engineering is a psychological manipulation to trick people into divulging confidential information. And I'm like, on the internet, anybody will tell you enough information to where you can pretty much access everything about them. And it doesn't take much to get that information out of them.
I can see it being that exactly. I can see it working on many levels. It can be social engineering. It can be information gathering. It can be just propping something up and giving it virality and burying other things. It can work on heaps of levels.
And I feel like that second part that you said, Discordian, because I'm like, it can't just be that. There's more to it. And then I started thinking about social conditioning, and that's making people think that they feel a certain way whenever they don't even necessarily, that thought isn't coming from themselves. It's coming from things that they've even subversively have seen over and over again. So it's like you have this idea and you don't even know where it's coming from. And that could be through advertising or through, like we're saying, it could be from bots repeatedly saying like these different ideas. And then like once you see that over and over again,
it's reinforced. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like it's your own thought, but it's not. It's coming from an external source and you don't even realize it.
That could even be political commentary. That could be anything that they're affecting there, Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, just in case I don't get it, in the reverse of that is that if you have a legitimate idea or something that is right and you put it out there and 100 people attack you on the point and shout you down, that removes you from thinking that you can say your real thoughts on the internet or or being honest, and or detracting you from thinking that and make you think the opposite then. Because if 100 people got on there and just blasted me, and then all the other people that witness that are real, that see it, they just jump on the bandwagon of those 100 people because they're like, well, that must be the right moral ground to stand on, so I'll go with the majority. And it's mucking around with everything. That we're the virtuous, righteous on this side, and we draw a line here, and if you're not on this side of the line, and who's controlling where that line is?
That could be a social conditioning, just like whenever people feel like maybe they didn't necessarily have such strong convictions before, but they see people discussing certain ideas, and it's like, yeah, those ideas, there's a certain set of socially accepted virtues, and then if you're not 100% for that, then you're considered a bad person. And that's not true either. You don't have to be 100% in line with what someone's saying is right.
But it's not really socially accepted virtues, it's internet enforced.
Yeah, propagated. Definitely.
By design, and then it infects. It's like a virus that they're putting in there, and then the bots let it out, and then it contaminates the real people's minds. I want to dance around it. I'll give you like 2 examples that I think of, and one is Trump hate. Like bots could have fueled that, and then people get on the bandwagon, And what about BLM? Like all the shouting down and the racial ideas. Like there was probably a lot of people on there that were with that, but I reckon that a lot of it could have been fueled by bots, which then fanned the flames.
It's interesting you bring up BLM because whenever I was doing some research, I did find that BLM, which is the Black Lives Matter organization, that they actually tapped into paying influencers to say certain things to prop up their organization. And so like people, if they have 1 million followers, they can be bought, and I guess they can be paid to say certain things for these organizations, and they don't have to even say that they're being paid to say it. So it's very deceitful, and that even goes into how
it's kind of more
governments.
obvious when they're advertising for them, like, oh, this guy's wearing Nike and he's got 1 million followers, so Nike will say, here, wear our stuff, because 1 million people will see it. So that's working. That's a potential to a real market. And then you'd think that reversely, it's not 1 million bots that are getting that advertising. They want to reach real people, but that's an obvious one, But when you say that it's just by what would be their opinions or whatever, as if it's their opinion, but it's paid for opinion, well, that's another realm altogether.
I guess influencers would be a whole other can of worms, though, besides the bots, because like we have all discussed during the pandemic, the White House actually invited social media influencers to come to the White House, and they were having a meeting with them. I don't know if it was a paid for type thing or if it was just them asking kind of to serve their country in a certain way, but they actually were having them push pro-vaccine and pro-mask stories. And so they would say, like, people would pop on and they would just be masked up, and they would be like, everybody stay home, or whatever it was. And, it's very targeted propaganda.
Didn't they? A lot of celebrities came out and advertised, or they declared their belief in the pandemic and the measures. Like, they backed up everything, the vaccine, the man to get vaccinated and all that. And were they doing that just because they wanted to, or did they get paid?
And we know that the World Health Organization was one of the biggest groups that was working towards pushing certain agendas during the pandemic. And it was actually exposed that they were also hiring these influencers, and they were paying them. And they went beyond paying an influencer, and they actually created their own CGI influencer, they said, to reach their Gen Z market, and that this CGI bot, or whatever you want to call it, it was providing, quote unquote, providing accurate and vetted information about COVID-19. And this is on Instagram, and this CGI influencer now has over 1 million followers.
Trust the deep fake.
Terrifying. Yeah, I don't know what you would call that. I guess a deep
I
fake.
think deep fake. Yeah, I guess. When we discussed artificial intelligence in a long ago episode, and from that, we discovered that bots do management to Wikipedia and management to Twitter. So it's not like there's a human sitting there scrolling through everyone's comments. It's programmed bots that are regulating that. So already the narrative is curtailed to a certain design. And then the interactions within it are also being manipulated. So hence why the idea is that the internet is dead and fake, because it's so managed, micromanaged, and everyone is actually in a shoebox when they think they're actually amongst the stars with all this realm of possibility. Which, what year would we say that did that die, like, and not become real anymore? I believe it's around the 2004 mark where it takes a drastic turn, but it might be earlier.
This guy posits says it's around 2016.
My man going, that's interesting, because the other thing I looked at to do with Google, when you do Google searches for any human content, it's hard to find anything that predates 2016 in their search results. But you can find information that predates that's historical or administrative, like it's government or it's some company or whatnot, whatever. You can find their recorded documents and stuff that were published at certain times, but the actual presence of human interaction on the internet is hard to find before 2016, and most of it's buried or not there anymore. And I believe that it's about hyperlinks being broken that no longer exist.
Link rot.
Yeah. Okay. So the Potemkin village was an idea that came out of, I think it's 18th century, and it's in Russia. And there was a guy named Grigory Potemkin, and he was trying to bamboozle, I think it's Catherine the Great, who's like the leader there. And anyway, the idea is that to get favor and influence, he was pretending that his towns or townships that he controlled were these perfect, clean, advanced cities where everyone was dressed really nice. And it was this whole facade, like you might think of a movie set on a studio where, you see everything on the face. And if you see photos of it, or you're standing from afar, it would look real. But if you're up close, you would see that it's all propped up and fake. And that lended the term Potemkin village to the idea that this guy was just faking it. Like even to the part where when some people came to witness the village themselves from afar, he would send out all these people that were dressed really regally and nicely and had all these great artifacts, and it gave the impression, but in the actual town, people were starving and stuff, and it was not such. So anyway, on the dead internet theory, that was saying that that's what the internet and the Google search results are now, is like a Potemkin village, except that nobody realizes, like everyone's thinking that it's real. The other idea that comes into me to that is the Wizard of Oz scene where the green curtain's drawn back, and it's like everyone thinks it was this thing and they believe it. But then when you pull it back, it's just this one person operating all these controls and manipulating the situation. It's fake.
Well, I was just going to say, what that brings to mind to me, a more current example is North Korea. They do a lot of those same tactics, and they'll put on whole televised events that make everything look, well, I don't think it looks nice, but they put out a bunch of propaganda about how lovely it is to live there, which everyone knows that that's not accurate. And I mean, it's just to prop themselves up, and and make it seem like it's better than it is, when in actuality, there's human rights
issues. Yeah.
Yeah, huge issues.
It's a death camp of a country.
Yeah. That's what came to my mind when you're explaining that.
Yeah, well, and I actually did think of it, but I only thought of it because I've seen that funny movie. I can't think of what it's called, with James Franco and Seth Rogen, and they all believing it.
Interview.
The interview, yeah. And then when he's believing it all, the other guy believes it, one doesn't anyway. And then he goes over to the grocery store, and it's all plastic fruit. He's like, no.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, that's Potemkin for sure. Yeah. But so that's it. He's broken the fourth wall there, or whatever, of the facade, and he's seen the truth.
Fat kid isn't real.
The fat kid was real, I think. If you don't know that, if you're not directed in such a way, and you just keep looking at it for what it's presented as, you can go on being fooled. That's the idea. And this is what we're talking about with the internet. So the Google search results is a good example of that. I was seeing one guy demonstrating that he tried something. I mean, in the resource, it says pizza, how many things could there be on the internet about pizza? And it's got some ridiculous number. I don't think, if you have it there, but it's in the billions. And then he's like, all right, so I'm going to go through every page and see how this goes to the end. And it's like 10 results each page. So he goes page 2, page 3, page 4. And then he gets to a certain point, the number of remaining pages and links or whatever possibilities, like halves or something. Like, I'm not saying this correctly. If you watch the video, he gives you the exact numbers. But you would think that with a billion or even a million links to sites about pizza, that the search results should go on for more than 35 pages. But he gets to 35 pages, and at the end, it says that the total summary is like 346 links that are actually legitimately searchable if you go through every single page, and that's where the Potemkin village falls apart and you hit the brick wall that's got the tunnel painted on it. Like it's actually not there, but it looks like it's there. And the idea that it's there dazzles everyone when they do their search results. But if they follow the thread, they actually don't exist. And then he done other examples like climate change. There should be 1 million links to articles on that, and there was like 500. And you have to bet that the ones that are there are the ones that they want you to see. Whereas all the other stuff,
Not a lot of people leave the first page, you know what I mean?
yeah, that's it. No one who goes to I always actually go deeper for that reason, because I don't want all the top shit, because I know that that's there because it's being pushed. So sometimes you go straight to page 5 or 10 just to see what's different.
The vast majority of people won't leave page 1 though. So their little village is still kept up intact.
But I do think it's pretty obvious to anybody that's paying attention that Google has drastically changed over time as well, and that the first results that you get are always going to be generated with manipulation. And those are, a lot of the time, I feel like those are paid for results that will be the first ones that pop up, because those organizations or whatever it is are paying for their result to be first.
And the first line, sorry to cut off, is advertising. Sometimes it's a related product.
Yeah, it's usually always an ad. And then I was going to say, whenever along the same lines, going into the whole Google thing, getting ready for this episode, I was like, I want to do a little experiment myself and see what happened. So I Googled, is Bigfoot real? And immediately 28,300,000 search results started generating. And so I was like, that's interesting. That's a lot of results. And so I started clicking through them. And the first actual site that popped up was the Smithsonian Institute. And it was an article titled, "Why Do So Many People Still Want to Believe in Bigfoot?" Then the next thing that I came to was from Live Science. And it was also negating the reality of Bigfoot being a possibility. And their little synopsis stated, "Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, is a large ape-like creature some people believe inhabits North America, but there's not any hard evidence that this actually exists." And then I just kept going down the line. There were the articles from National Geographic, the History Channel, Wikipedia, of course, Scientific American. I saw JSTOR, Mjolnir's favorite, and then a handful of local news sites. But what happened was I kind of did the same thing that this guy did. And that was like the first maybe like 8 pages. And then as you continue to click through it, I don't know if this is the appropriate term for it, but I call it junk sites. So it's like essentially just people hashtagging whatever these keywords are that they know that people search for, and they're wanting their website to pop up. And it really just descends, if you don't have on safe search, it's always like porn sites and just like these explicit sites that they know people, I guess, will eventually click on if they tag enough of these popular search terms. And so you'll just see it and it will be like hashtag, like maybe not 1 million, but thousands of different hashtags on this, so that it will generate regardless of
Traffic
what
for
someone's
them.
searching.
Yeah, it directs traffic, right? Yeah.
So it's like a weird algorithm type thing too, I'm sure, because it's just interesting, because obviously the algorithm will pick up on those hashtags and then it generates it as a search, even though it has nothing to do with what you're actually looking for.
What you're talking about there is what the original poster calls algorithm fiction. So in his original post, he comes off like a motherfucking weeb, but he says
Are you talking about what's his name? Pirate. Yeah,
Illuminati
Illuminati
pirate.
Pirate. Yeah, Illuminati Pirate. Yeah.
So he says, do you like cape shit, Anon? How about other Hollywood stuff, music perhaps? Have you noticed how sterile fiction has become? How it caters to the lowest common denominator and follows the same template over and over again? How music is just auto-tunes and basic blandness? The writer's strike never ended. Algorithms and computer programs are manufacturing modern fiction. No human being is behind this. And then he goes on to say this, why anime looms so large. Even a simple Mo anime is hard because actual people are behind it, and we intuitively feel this.
What I said, what I read about, or what it was about that Pirate Bay, which was that peer-to-peer sharing site that was big for a while. I think it's still there, but it's not as big. It was derived from Illuminati Pirates sort of stance on what the internet is and what's happening. And then it was like people taking the flow of data streams into their own hands with peer-to-peer and sharing content. And I remember at the time there and Kick-Ass and all these other places was it was a buffet. It was a buffet. You could just go on there and look for anything, and as long as 10 people were on there that had the file, you could get it. And I actually used that advantage to store it in external hard drives. And I believe that, tying it back to this, is if you went to look for those videos and files on the actual internet, you would never find them now, ever. They're gone or buried, or the hyperlinks have been smashed on purpose, perhaps. I don't know. And you wouldn't find that content anymore. And the only way you can get it is on the underground internet this way, I believe.
The peer-to-peer, yeah.
What's the underground internet?
But someone's got to have it in a server still now. And before it was like sharing the lollies around to everyone, but now there's no lolly shop. Like there's no, unless the people that have been doing it for the last 20 years continue to do it forever. And then we know they shut them down.
Peer-to-peer is very dependent on uploaders, so someone out there needs to have the full files in order for me to be able to download them.
Yeah, well, that all relates back to the dead internet idea, whereas you can't find the things, and it's the humans that hold the resources and the creativity. And when you just dampen it out and replace it all with your algorithm-driven bots and propped up links, so like supported links and all this, it's changed into a whole different beast now.
Well, I mean, they're even trying to automate a lot of torrent traffic because they sell seed boxes now, so you can download your torrents to your seed box and then just on the internet on some server somewhere.
The other idea I thought about in the reverse was the hackers idea. You know how hackers, so I know Anon and other people did it, but it's way before that too. You just need numbers, right? So if 200 people try and harass the WHO administration desk or whatever, it's going to cause something, but maybe they can deal with it. But if 2,000 or 2 million people attack it at the same time in various different ways, like in a cyber attack idea that was propelled by humans.
It's called a DDoS.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that you've got the lingo. It can be effective, they've actually taken things down or crashed them completely, destroyed them. I don't know. But I think that way that it works, it's working in the reverse way where they've got an almost unlimited bot army doing their will on the internet.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about in the intro, where I was talking about botnets. That's what they're called. Instead of a botnet, you have zombie computers all over the world.
And I've seen the image of, I don't know if it's a real image or whatever, but it was a room that just had screens, millions of screens, like in the Matrix pod idea, all over in shelves in rows for forever. There had to be like thousands, and they were doing operations at lightning speed. That was like bot activity that they were programmed to do. And there's power in that. And they probably were, like you say, leasing it out to people, or maybe they had an agenda. I don't know who they worked for, whatever.
Well, you can easily lease it out. You can get someone to pay you, and all you have to do is run a program to watch a video or like something a certain amount of times. Different fake accounts, different botnets around the world, and you make money from it. You can become really rich over it. Those click farms are like a $19 billion industry.
Like screens all connected to each other, and in this shelf like train of like Matrix pods. and they were performing all these operations at lightning speed, and whatever they were interacting with, they were doing millions of them in a second and affecting the internet, And then I went on to say that in this process, how you get likes and stuff, like Molly was explaining, and influence people, you could prop up like a presidential candidate that way. You could prop up some like a new movie, like say for instance, Marvel wants everyone to think their movie's great and everyone loves it. So you get all these people on there that are saying it's the best thing ever, but you would go and watch it and you're like, this is a piece of shit. Like, what are you talking about? It just has all this influence, and then that just keeps on making me come back to the idea that it's a Potemkin village, it's a dead internet, but it's also like trapping you in like a prison of thought, and that's what the thought rebellion is sort of about, breaking, it's like you can't just eat what's put on the plate in front of you, so to speak. You have to ask, what is in this? Is this gluten-free? No, I don't mean that, but like
Something that came up whenever I was looking into this is I read that it doesn't seem like it's going to get better. It just seems like it's going to get worse over time. And that one internet expert, I don't know what that means, but they claim that by the year 2025, that 99.9% of the internet is going to be AI generated. So that leaves 0.1% of being in actuality. And they went on to describe a world like you're kind of saying, it's going to be just the internet's this self-driving machine, and that it's completely generated by AI and there's no human element to it, and that they're integrating this type of technology into creating the metaverse in Web3.
I was about to say enter Web3.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of Web3. What's that?
Next iteration of the internet.
Oh, okay. Oh, Web number 3. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not there. Are we at 2 now? I didn't know.
Yeah, we're on Web 2.
I missed the sequel.
I think Web 2 is probably whenever that switch happened, right? Whenever it was becoming more driven by an algorithm.
Oh, sorry. Am I an idiot? Are we saying Web 1 is the original, and then this is Web 2 now, which is they've changed it? Okay, sorry, I'm with you.
Yeah, and then Web 2 incorporates decentralization, supposedly.
It took me a second to
Blockchain
catch
as
up
well.
because I haven't heard the term, so I had to sort of put it into my brain somewhere. Sorry, continue.
Just how I think of it is that even though humans are going to be interacting in the world, it's that they're not going to be creating it. So it's like whatever this new world holds, it's providing this endless stimulation, and people are going to be even more hooked on it than what they are now on the internet.
Yes. Do you know what that sounds like? It sounds like a movie. It sounds like a movie that I've seen called The fucking Matrix, right? Where there's people walking around in there that are still like free thinkers, and they're not connected to the internet, but everything else going on in there is just an AI regulation.
I thought you were going to say Ready Player One.
Yeah, that too. Ready Player One.
Ready Player One, it's insinuated in that they're all lonely users that are trying to be fantastic people interacting, so they're real. And there wasn't much of a bot element in that. The bot is the AI that they're fighting against, which is the Oasis engine that provides them with all their adversaries and stuff. And their interactions, I guess there's probably like the librarian idea that could be a bot and whatnot.
All bots come into one super intelligence.
Yeah, but in the Matrix idea, it's more that the humans are trapped in the physical world by the machines that are feeding them the content, which is their reality. And that's exactly what we're talking about. That's what I mean.
And something that I did want to expound upon too, that you guys touched on earlier, you're saying that these mechanisms will be able to influence elections and influence governmental bodies. And there's already evidence that this has been done. And whenever I was railing on Wikipedia earlier, I don't think Wikipedia is all bad. I think that it's a very good source that you can start an investigation or research on, but I don't
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I don't think
The money's coming
anyone
That was a
should
paid
use it.
message, guys. Sorry.
I don't think that anyone should use it solely as a source. So I posted into the Gilded, I screen capped some old Wikipedia post, and it's when Paul Ryan was getting roasted, and someone listed his photo and name under an invertebrates Wikipedia page. And so like if you scrolled down, you would see all these examples of different invertebrates. and it's like crustaceans, corals, worms, and then you just see Paul Ryan, like his face and his name listed. And then there was another example, and it's whenever Sean Spicer was working under Trump, and he was, I think, his press secretary for a while, and they changed his photo to like some dictator's photo. And it's just influencing people's minds to think about politicians in a certain way. And I think it could definitely be used in a way without people even realizing it. Like that, yeah, it's funny, but then you're going to have that thought in the back of your mind too.
And the reversely, as we explained in Laptop from Hell, when you suppress some sort of information, you can influence things as well. So yeah, stuff that might be damning to the candidate that you're trying to push, or the idea that you want, you can keep that out of the algorithm can remove that from, or bury it, or smash the links to it. COVID information was an idea, and all around that time,
And I feel like the whole suppression and people not really seeing the complete internet as well is a whole other topic that I want to go into in another episode, and just how this suppression has gotten so large that it's like people aren't even seeing this. Whenever you say you go on the internet, if you're from a different place on the planet, you're not seeing the same results as what someone else is seeing from your country.
On another episode, do y'all remember Raptor Jesus?
No.
Raptor Jesus is pushed by it's like a meme format, pushed by the elderly and decrepit, where Jesus is a reptilian. But one thing that IlluminatiPirate points out is Raptor Jesus started on 4chan, and it was a reptilian messiah, and then it evolved onto a foul bachelor frog, and then it went on to Pepe. And then he goes on to say, "Am I the only one who sees a clear evolution?" A link. It's as if this meme or entity or whatever the fuck was on 4chan since day one has grown out from the tiniest seed, yet Raptor Jesus was fully a joke and there was nothing serious or mystical about it. He goes on to say, "Remember that TED guy with the right-wing talk show, CCA, prior to 2010, who 4chan ruined for the lols? Remember Anonymous versus Scientology? Remember that big bomb threat, aka exploding yellow van? Do y'all remember any of that?"
Yeah, I do. So is he trying to say that the evolution of the meme is mirroring the evolution of the internet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
The only thing I know of the words you just said is Pepe. That's the only thing I'm aware of.
Good guy. Good guy.
And then I was speaking to a friend earlier this week and telling him that we were going to be recording this episode, and he did tell me about a documentary about the evolution of Pepe the Frog.
I'll remember when Anon was big, and not when it was big, before it was big, when it was sort of underground, and then it came to the light. And at that time, I feel like that was when the internet was embracing it and trying to corral it and take over it, like take the power away from the people that were doing the Anon sort of idea, and then deep fake it and put out different content and misdirect people and just pollute the data, the water pool of the people, the data pool, whatever you say, the people. And then it became like fake Anon. And that was just like the way now that they can deal with any sort of uprising or resistance is so easy by this medium, anything. And I think about the kids that get onto it now, and where they don't have the objective view that we're proposing today. They're just the spoons. They have no choice but to consume that. It's sad for the kids because, I see it in my own children too. And if they comment on something that is apparent news, and they're like, "Oh, such and such has happened, and I seen this," or Ukraine, for instance, or whatnot, and then dad will come over there and go, "Yeah, but have you thought of it like this?" They look at you like you're crazy. And I'm like, but that's now the portrait of crazy, is to question things that you see on the internet.
I mean, I don't think that's now. I think that's always been the
Yeah, it has,
push.
but I mean in reference to younger people that
Yeah,
don't have the
definitely.
objective view, but amongst your peers, definitely like that means that you're breaking their reality bubble and they're happy in this internet bubble that is a Potemkin village. And if you were to push those fake walls down, they would they would be terrifying, because then they wouldn't understand what world they were living in, and that's scary.
That kind of ideology is incredibly susceptible to the metaverse.
Yeah, sort of swallow that up, right?
I don't think we touched on it, but just like with echo chambers on the internet, it's like people want to hear their view reinforced, and they can have a Twitter feed or an Instagram feed or a Facebook feed that is doing exactly that. And it's not even people that they follow. Now it seems like the new thing is for those sites to recommend, not even recommend people for you to follow, but it just pops up on your feed. And it's like it's reinforcing your already predisposed beliefs. And it's definitely not lending itself to you questioning things that you, ideas that you have, but instead just making you feel more secure in whatever thinking, whatever you're thinking is the answer, and that's not always true. And I think that that's also a very dangerous path for people to go down.
Well, yeah, people have their shitty, ill-informed opinions, and then they have online reinforced their ill-informed opinions, and they're just as ill-informed as they were when they came in. That's why everyone should use Ground News, which is linked to our Gilded, which you should join.
So have you seen now on, I think it's on, definitely on YouTube, but maybe on Reddit too, that there's a stipulation now in the comments where it will say most relevant, and rather than entire content of comments. So if there's a thread of 100, you might see 5 that they're dubbed the most relevant. And I don't know if that's by likes or whatnot, but it's definitely by their decree, by the bots or whatever deciding. And I'm like, yeah, you don't tell me what's most relevant. How are you discerning what is most relevant to every single user that is clicking on the comments to read opinions about this thing? There's many people doing it, and they don't all have the same relevancy, I don't think, in mind. So that to me, is it working different for each person, for each profile that's clicking that? Because I have a YouTube profile, so I stopped the history at a certain time, but for a point in time, it did know my history and what I like. So it sort of stayed the same way for more than 5 years now. It's not really suggesting much except for stuff that I currently watch now. Like, it's like, even though my history's off, it still knows, it's still showing me similar stuff. But yeah, that was my idea about it. It's like, how can they tell you what's most relevant to you? They've got a profile of you and they think they know, or is it just that they've filtered the comments and they're like, well, this is what we'd rather you see and be lean towards, or have your opinion swayed by, you know?
You have an ID. You literally have an ID on the internet.
Yeah, like a digital footprint. Yeah.
Linked directly to you and everything you've ever searched and every interest you've ever expressed.
Yeah. So now is it basing that relevancy of comments on my profile to think what I would like to hear and what I wouldn't like to hear? Because then that's what CC was saying is dangerous, you know?
That's what leads down the pipeline of radicalization in today's society, I guess.
Yeah. And you know what? If we say that, just before we get to the end of this, is like, if you can do that much stuff, then how the hell can terrorism or pedophilia or anything of the shit that goes on the internet that is not wanted, how can that remain and thrive even, or be utilized, when we have demonstrated here today how much control there possibly is?
It's almost like that's being controlled by some powerful forces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the firewall can be dropped for certain things and put up for others.
I do think that we're more connected now, but also less connected now than we have been ever before. And that this is the age of information that allows us to instantly access information on topics that we would otherwise have had to search high and low for. Now it's at our fingertips. And I think that although we can get information on the internet, I don't think it's the same as experiencing it for ourselves. And I still think that's one of the most important things that's lacking from the internet is you can't gain the same knowledge by reading about something as you do of going out and seeing it for yourself. And I think that we should push back against the AI and the bots and the influencers and the government and anyone who is either trying to manipulate us or guide the internet to include only information that they deem fit, and that we should keep it as open and accessible for everyone, and that we need not forget that what we see on the internet is not always true, obviously, and to have a complete understanding, don't forget to go out into your own community and see for yourself what's happening. Because I do think that the fear objective is being pushed, and it's to drive the doom and gloom, and it will always be used because that's the best way and most efficient way to manipulate and control people. And that if we can eliminate that fear from ourselves, we can thrive in a higher freedom that makes us ungovernable by these certain control mechanisms. And that you really need to look within and then outside yourself to try to discern what's really going on. And that mainstream media is always going to be an echo chamber, and it's always going to be a fear-based propaganda, and that you need to look beyond.
Do you believe that disconnection started at the inception of the internet?
No, I think we've always seeked out people that have similar beliefs to ourselves, but I think that a well-rounded person will always seek out the alternative view as well.
No, I don't mean that. I mean disconnection between humanity, because there's obviously not as much connection with people in typing into a screen. So do you believe that started at the inception of the internet, or you think
Becoming
that's
more disconnected from humanity? I think the internet was formed from that. I think that we were seeking to disconnect because people were maybe a little bit too, not interconnected, but I think people were looking for an escape from reality, and that's how the internet inception formed.
It's funny what you say, Molyneux, about the fact that we were saying that we were connecting people via the internet, sort of in its initial inception and going into it, but that interaction wasn't anything physical, touch, smell, not even sight in the beginning. Like you say, it was just text, and there's interpretation in text too. It doesn't show tone and intent. So that's just sort of an oxymoron there, like a paradox of an idea where, you're being brought close to it together. And then it evolved into, now that's going to evolve into a completely artificial version of it, like metaverse. So it's come a long way. And the other thing, CC, to your amazing, with your lovely final thoughts there, which I really liked, I started thinking that when you say you have to look within and stuff, I wanted to say that people are the only ones that can start a thought rebellion in their own minds by understanding this. And then also they can help others and free others. And together we can all start a thought rebellion that way by just, finding the right people that have that twinkle in their eye that will get it, and letting them know. And hopefully this podcast reaches some of those ears as well.
That just sounds like Plato. Literally Plato's allegory of the cave.
That's a great allegory, isn't it? It's relatable here. It's almost like Potemkin Village, but it's something else. It's just about your awareness, isn't it?
Exactly. That's the end of our conversation today, I guess. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you to Roger for suggesting this topic. Thank you for listening through the entire duration of the episode. I hope that you have learned something from this episode, and that it is actually productive to you in real life, as the thought rebellion has just begun.